Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State for the United States, met with Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov. What's interesting is they met without anybody from Europe, and they met without Zelensky and anybody from the Ukraine. Now, this is almost like great powers, almost like a Yalta, where they're trying to divide the world again. This is obviously what Trump wants. This is the way he shows his power. I'm not sure it's going to work that way. You're seeing a lot of pushback from Europe. You know, you saw that the heads of all of the major European powers had a meeting earlier this week with Ursula von der Leyen, with Scholz from Germany, with Macron from France, and there's rumors that they're going to give $750 billion package to Ukraine. I think one of the problems is that Trump started attacking the EU in his first couple weeks as presidency, whether it be trying to take over Greenland from Denmark, whether it's criticizing NATO for not putting in 5% of their budgets towards defense. So he has a real strained relationship with Europe right now. And by cutting Europe, and especially Ukraine, out of the talks yesterday in Saudi Arabia, that's going to cause even more anger from the Europeans. And I think they're going to push back and say, we're not vassals of Trump. We're going to do our own thing. And so I think by not having other people at the table, it's going to complicate the peace process. On the good side, I think economically, Europe realizes that it needs to pivot away from the US. Over the last several years, you had people like Jorge Woodke or Ursula von der Leyen say they should decouple or de-risk, is what they said, from China. I think what you're going to see is Europe realizes they have to pivot back towards China. They have to forge good relations with China again because they just can't rely on the United States as a partner anymore. I mean, Trump is too mercurial. He's too transaction-based. He's too much about me. I win, you lose. So I think that the peace process needs to incorporate Europe, but it especially needs to incorporate Ukraine. If they're not involved with the discussions, then peace can't be had. One of the criticisms I've had from over the Biden regime over the last several years is they refuse to talk with the Russians. They refused the Ukrainians to talk to the Russians. So were they looking for peace? You know, I feel that under Biden, that they were looking to have a proxy war with Russia, and they were trying to hurt and damage Russia economically and politically by using essentially Ukraine as cannon fodder. They were letting Ukrainian boys die in war. They were selling LNG from the United States to Europe at 4 times the price than what they were selling in the United States. So the United States benefited from this proxy war, even though I think it's immoral. I think it's great that Trump is, in his first month of becoming president, is pushing for talks. If you don't have talks, you can't have peace. I believe that weapon manufacturers like Raytheon or Palantir shouldn't be publicly traded because they have every benefit to push or to fearmonger or to create war so that they profit. Because if there's no war, then their stock price goes down. So I don't think that these weapon industry, defense industry companies should be publicly traded. However, the one concern I have is you hear a lot of the people in DC saying we want to put an end to war and tensions to Russia because they want to reallocate resources, spending, and effort to China because China is the real threat. I do not consider China to be a threat to the United States in any way. I agree with Jeffrey Sachs on this. I think the CPC is focused on building up China. Now, there might be tension over Taiwan or Hong Kong, but these are areas that China considers to be their property, their sovereignty, part of their country. I don't see China invading the Philippines or China invading India or trying to take over Thailand. This isn't going to be a colonialism or imperialism. So I don't see China as a nation similar to the Western powers that like to expand its territory over what it already considers to be part of the mainland. I do worry that there's certain war hawks in the United States that want to end the Russian war in order to focus on containing China more. I mean, you can see Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, has been one of the biggest war hawks on China when he was a senator. You see David Perdue, who Trump has nominated to be the ambassador to China. He's also been a war hawk on China. A few months ago, he wrote an op-ed, really fear-mongering about China, where he said that China wanted to invade the United States and implement its political and value system in the US. So I think Trump is appointing a lot of super China hawks around him. Now, I'm hopeful that he's using them for a shock and awe strategy. I hope that he's using them to criticize China in order to throw China off kilter in negotiations so that Trump can pull back from the brink of war, because I don't think Trump wants war, and to come up with a great deal where he says he beat the Chinese. But you never know. When Trump is surrounded by so many war hawks, there is a fear that they could create another proxy war over Taiwan. Many Chinese and I myself believe that the Ukraine war was precipitated by NATO and America. And there's a fear that the United States might try to start a proxy war in Taiwan in order to contain China and in order to enrich the weapon manufacturers like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, who are selling billions and billions of dollars worth of weapons to Taiwan.